Alrighty, so here we go with Theology Thursday Reading Hour, an ecumenical space for students to read stuff and talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy. So this first book I'm gonna share, and then and that'll be available to everyone. And then if you want to get into the other two books, you're gonna have to subscribe on Patreon at least tier 2. Okay, so here we go.
So what book did Connor read? What did you read, Connor?
Okay, thank you for rephrasing that. It seems like a kindergarten class. What book did Connor read this week?
Tell us about the book. Show it. Did you bring it? You show and tell. You got a book. Did it have cool pictures in it?
No pictures in this book.
I can't read that book.
It's a short book.
Okay, cool. It's short.
It's
It's like 5 pages, 6, 7.
It's like 130 pages.
130. That's not short.
That is short.
Yeah, because it's got big print too.
Oh, okay.
It's
cool.
a short read. It's a short read, but it's a good read, and I'll talk about it, and we'll talk about it. Okay, this is a book called The Reset. Okay, and it was written by a man named Jeremy Riddle. You may have heard his name before. You may have seen his name on
The Riddler?
Riddle.
Okay. I know about the Riddler.
Stop.
This is going to be impossible. I actually don't have a lot to say, so maybe this will help stretch the episode out. Jeremy Riddle is a former worship leader with Bethel. Okay, so he was with Bethel, and people know Bethel's done some weird stuff.
Did they fight and break up?
Laying across graves and doing all sorts of stuff, you know. And then a lot of people would just kind of criticize the Bethel Hillsong Passion kind of celebrity worship culture as a whole. And I think some of the music that's come out of it is absolutely fantastic. Jeremy Riddle's actually written a few songs that I really like some contemporary songs like All Hail King Jesus, and Be Enthroned. There's a few like really good ones that he's written. And so, but yeah, he was part of that scene, right?
Yeah.
And the past few years, he has made a little bit of a transition. Okay, he's gone back to his home church, the church he grew up in, to be the creative arts worship guy. Smaller church, so he kind of left the Bethel scene, went back to that, and he started a nonprofit. Let me make sure I get the name of the nonprofit right. But part of his whole ministry that he started is about discipling worship leaders. Mm-hmm. And
that's something that you like.
Yeah, I like. I'm a worship leader. I disciple young worship leaders. And that's a big part of why this book was...
You need to connect with Jeremy Riddler.
Oh, that's what it is. It's called Wholehearted. That's the name of his ministry. And so this book was part of the resources that he was releasing under Wholehearted. His idea was to do workshops, conferences, coaching, that kind of thing, and to release books like this. So this was kind of the first one, kind of summarizing the whole mission of it. And I'll say a couple things that I really appreciate about what he's doing is all of his work with Wholehearted, he tries to offer for free as much as possible. So, like, you can buy the book, but on Amazon and some of these places, it's sold at cost. He's not making anything off of it. It's literally just printing, publishing cost. And he has a free version of it online that you can read. So this book wasn't like a cash grab for him. Mm-hmm. And even with his coaching and a lot of the stuff that he's doing through Wholehearted, it's very much just he wants to help people. So that I already respect and appreciate. But what about the content of the book? What's the point of the book? That's what we're here to talk about, right?
Tell us, Connor.
I just think that context is important.
Yeah.
Context is key.
Yeah, in life,
in everything,
Jesus is king.
Yeah,
and context is key.
Amen.
Kanye. It's
yay.
The Reset is about returning to the heart of worship, and I can't help but think of the Matt Redman song. I'm coming back
to the heart of worship.
Yep. So
I love that song back in the day. I mean,
you,
it's still a
you
great
don't love
song.
it anymore?
No, I still love
It's
it.
a great song.
Sometimes it's a great song, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, look, here's his point. This is he's respectful about it. He's not going in guns blazing. He's very gentle and compassionate about it. But this is pretty much a reprimand of celebrity worship culture. That's the point of this book. Is saying, like, what this has become about selling records and tours and concerts is so wrong. Like, that's not what worship is. And basically just going through some, like, character disciplines and some things about, like, what's the point of worship and what should our goals be, you know, like, and I essentially see this, like, it's a book that I'm like, I'm going to snatch up as many copies as this I can and use it with young worship leaders that I'm discipling. Because when I think about, like, high school, early college students that I'm pouring into that want to be worship leaders, this is a great conversation starter. Okay, but why? Is it because you want to be on stage, because you want to be in front of people, or is it because, you know, you have a talent as a musician or a singer or whatever, and you want to use that to edify the church? Because there's a difference. And look, church music, and he even has in his first couple chapters, he talks about the history of worship. It has a rich history, and I think that music is very important. We did an episode, What is Worship? And we sang a couple songs in that one too.
We did.
Yeah, we did. And I thought that was that's an important episode for me, because that was actually kind of came out of some sermon notes that I use when I talk about, the point of worship. And so, and specifically the point of music in worship. So I think music is important, in the life of the church and the life of the believer. And I think even Johnny, with your spiritual formation stuff that you like to use, like, music is a part of that, right? And you recognize
Yes.
that as a part of drawing closer to God.
Yes.
It's something that connects with us on a spiritual level in a way that nothing else can. So it matters, but what's our motivation in doing it? And if it has anything to do with celebrity, then we need to take a step back.
Ooh.
And that's pretty much the point of his book. I mean, I just really appreciated it, especially coming from somebody like him. Like, there was one young lady that I gave this book to, and when I told her about it, I was like, yeah, because she was really excited. She's like, God wants me to be a worship leader. She's getting out of high school. And I was like, yeah, and this book is written by Jeremy Riddle. And she's like, Jeremy Riddle? And, and I'm like, But I think it's good for students like that who maybe have kind of idolized the celebrity worship culture to hear it from somebody who's come out of that, So I appreciate him writing this book, because I could have written this book, but nobody would have cared what I had to say.
Right. That is correct.
And it coming from him, I think matters. It's significant. Just because more people will be open to hearing it.
I'd say two things.
Only two things.
Okay. One,
If you say a third thing, I'm going to have to punch you in the face.
I think that is probably one of the most important things across the board, really. Like, I mean, but in this culture as well of celebrity worship, with celebrity pastoring and everything like that, like, we don't think about character and, inward spiritual formation, right? Like, what it means to become like Christ, right? So I think that that's really cool that he's doing that and kind of saying, hey, unless you get this part, it's going to crumble and none of it really matters. The other side of that coin is that even though I think it's wrong to pursue that celebrity stuff especially without the undergirding of character, right?
Yeah.
Discipleship, like he speaks to in the book, I would also say that it doesn't mean that you can never sing a Bethel song. And I think you would agree with that.
No. And I mean, this guy, he's still writing and recording music. He still does concerts,
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I think that is an important caveat, and that's why I said he does it with respect and gentleness, I think, because he says that none of those things in and of themselves are inherently wrong.
Right.
But if that's the goal, if that's the end game, if that's what we're pursuing, then it is wrong. But basically, if you're doing these things, maybe you do end up recording an album. Maybe it does end up becoming a hit. Maybe it reaches lots of people. Great. But that's not the purpose, right?
Right. Yeah, I think of the Psalms. David like made a lot of mistakes. It didn't negate the Psalms themselves, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that God can use this, and I think of the story of Samson as well in this tragedy, that we can be used by God without really working with him, if that makes any sense. Like in the end, Samson accomplished his purpose, but he did it constantly moving against the grain of what God would have inspired in him in terms of character and all that kind of stuff, right? God worked in spite of him instead of the partnership that we see, in people like Moses and other significant people in the Bible. So it's a tragedy when you don't have that character. It doesn't mean that the content that remains isn't of God. So it's this balance. But what would be great, what the end goal would be, what Jeremy Riddle is talking about, is that you have character and then you produce great songs, and then both come together. Then that's partnership.
That's how you get to the heart of worship, like the song.
Where it's all about.
Okay. So yeah, it's great, and I think that kind of, you're addressing a question that comes up a lot. We've never been asked on the podcast, but I'll go ahead and answer it now. Can you sing songs in church that were written by, institutions or people who are maybe a little theologically wacko or unorthodox or whatever? And I would say, yeah, if the song itself is good, as I think that's a song-by-song basis sort of thing.
The Bible seems to indicate yes.
There are actually a lot of classic hymns, one of them being Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, that we sing, and we have no problem singing, because it's old, because it's a hymn. That guy recanted his faith before he died. I mean... It
is well with my soul as well. Horatio Spafford, he went on and did weird things.
And those are two of, like, the most iconic hymns, like, ever. Like, those are amongst, like, some of the most well-known, and we sing them all the time. So I think it's a mistake to take each song-by-song basis. Bethel, Hillsong, they both actually have some really theologically rich, deep, like, great songs. And they have some that are, So I just think it's, definitely don't throw it all out. Elevation, I was talking to this with my pastor the other day. We were pulling up, like, the lyrics, and you have, like, the little CCLI number in the corner. And he was like, does that say Stephen Furtick? And I'm like, yeah, all of the Elevation songs were primarily written by Stephen Furtick. He's got a couple other people that write it with him. I said, and he was a worship leader before he was a pastor. He actually has a great singing voice. He probably should have stuck with that.
Correct.
But, no, we were just like, it's bizarre because it's like when he's preaching, he has terrible theology, but when he starts singing, his theology all of a sudden becomes really good.
Maybe he should just sing preach.
Just sing all of his sermons.
It's a new genre of preaching.
Yeah, look, you have an opportunity to be on the
Lord, hear ye.
You don't do that.
No, I'm sorry.
You would not be a good singer.
Yeah.
Wow.
I also don't think Stephen Furtick would say "hear ye." By the way, there's a Facebook group, called "What the Furtick," and it's just people posting, like, weird quotes, weird things that Furtick said in his sermons. It's really entertaining. Like him coming out on stage and being like, "I am God." It's a little concerning, but he writes some great songs.
Did he ever clarify why he said such a thing?
Sort of. So, for those of you listening on the main episode, thank you for joining us for this discussion. If you want to continue the discussion, again, that's going to be a Patreon exclusive starting at tier number 2, $6 a month. If you'd like to continue supporting us, that's a way you can do that. And we're going to talk about, and just to give you a little tease, we're going to talk about Introduction to Critical Race Theory, and...
Inspired by Rachel Held Evans. You're not going to want to miss this.
Ooh, so there's some stuff that we're going to be talking about. This was just, hey, a worship leader guy says we should be better people. But this message. Stuff is, we're going to get a little deep.
Going
to get a little, some heresy, some CRT. What's the difference, right? So it's going to be a great. It's a joke. It's going to be a great conversation. I hope you choose to join us. If not, God bless you, and we'll see you next week on Theology Thursday.